1 seed. So we played the 4 seed of the other day.
Okay.
Like the American League played Jackson League.
Yeah. Huh.
So you crisscross, right? And then 2 plays 3 and 3.
Right.
So we Lee Daniels' team was second in their division. We were second in their division. No, we were first. So they won their 7. So now we play them. So there's 4 teams that won, obviously 4 teams that lost. The teams that lost are playing now. If they lose, it's double elimination. So there will be 2 teams eliminated.
You play like 6 games.
Well, if you the goal is you can win 4 games, you win. Yeah, right? That would be the fastest possible. So we're 1 game in. So if we win tonight, we don't play again until Monday, which is nice because there's teams playing tomorrow. You know, the losers tonight. You got limit on pitchers. Yeah. So I got 3 strong pitchers. I did. If you pitch 35 or less, you only have 1 day's rest and you come right back. So there's 35, and then TJ's boy comes in. We got in a little bit of a predicament. He ended up going over 35, but that's fine. If we were to lose tonight, we'll be ready tomorrow. So it's we're lucky with the number of pitchers we have. I'm pretty picky, so I don't like to just put anybody out there. But we've got maybe 3 or 4 kids that
you don't put out pool halls out there.
No. Like Justin Owens' boy Everett is pretty good. Tyler Klein's good. Caden Klein is pretty good. And then we've got they're all starting to good relief pitchers. And the other teams, they only pitch
And then do y'all go to a regional or?
No. So this is the win this and then also. So what they'll do is they'll take the 8 teams, they'll take the best 8 teams, and then
they'll make an all-star team in that regional.
That's where you got district, regional, state. But it's only for the 12. The 11s get cut out like the state. 10s get cut out of state.
Oh, really?
So all those others, they pretty much end at state. The 12s go on to 2 teams.
Okay. Well, cool. Yeah. So if you're the winning coach, do you pick the all-star team or do they do it some other way? Yeah. Oh, they love.
So the 8 coaches.
It's right here.
Because it's not a defensive round.
Oh yeah. He may just have
Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Cartersville City Council to order. If you will please stand for invocation and pledge.
Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, once again we assemble ourselves in the seat of government of Cartersville, Georgia. We ask for your guidance and direction and clarity in decision that's made. And we'll be so grateful. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please direct the roll, please.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1, here. Jay Stapp, Ward 2.
Here.
Carrie Roth, Ward 3.
Here.
Calvin Cooley, Ward 4.
Here.
Gary Fox, Ward 5.
Here.
Taft Wren, Ward 6.
Here. Thank you, Julia. First order of business is the approval of our council meeting minutes from May 5th. And council, you've had an opportunity to look these over. Now would be the time for any edits or corrections, additions, or deletions. And if not, motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. We start off this evening with a proclamation to commemorate Safe Boating Week. And I believe Mr. George here this evening. There you are. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to give you I'll come down and present it, and if you'd like to make a few comments afterwards, you're welcome to do that. This proclamation reads, whereas the city of Cartersville, Georgia with its unique weather and water resources, offers special related water recreational activities to its residents and people from around the world. Whereas Allatoona Lake, when full, covers more than 12,000 acres, has 270 miles of shoreline, and is one of the most visited lakes in the United States. Whereas the local Allatoona Lake Flotilla of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary averages nearly 300 hours of safety patrols on Allatoona Lake, teaches more than 90 hours of boating safety public education classes, provides 800 vessel safety checks to local boaters, staffs 700 hours of local public affairs events, and provides boating safety materials during 600 visitations to local retailers. On average, 600 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the U.S., and life jackets could prevent a significant number of boating fatalities. Whereas carrying life-saving emergency, distress, and communications equipment, wearing life jackets, attending safe boating courses, participating in free boat safety checks, and staying sober when navigating can help ensure boaters stay safe. Now, therefore, I, Matthew J. Santini, Mayor of the City of Cartersville, do hereby support the goals of all of the Safe Boating Campaign and proclaim May 21st through 27th, 2022 as National Safe Boating Week and the start of the year, and the start of the year-round effort to promote safe boating. It's my pleasure to present this to you. I'll come around and see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the council. I appreciate that very much. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, I appreciate your support of National Safe Boating Week.
Next item is the Planning Commission appointment. Mr. Menino.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our Ward 4 appointee to the Planning Commission, Mr. Harrison Dean, has resigned. With that, Anissa Cooley has been recommended to take his place. Harrison was on the Planning Commission for approximately 18 years. We appreciated his service. But with that, Anissa Cooley is recommended.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments, or motions?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I would like to commend Harrison for his 18 years of distinguished service. I think he was appointed by Councilman Clarence Benham and served continuously since then. And he is resigning from the council for family health reasons, and his recommendation was eagerly accepted by me, and wish for the council approval.
Thank you. Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the new commissioner, Lisa Cooley.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Calvin, and thank you, Randy. Mr. Hardigree, if you'll please get us started with AZ 22-02.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a de-annexation application for 3.23 acres located behind the Holiday Inn Express Inn and Suites off Highway 20 there at the 75 interchange. It is a property that's isolated, and really you can't do too much with it by itself. Currently in the county, on the property to the west, there is a residential development that's in the works right there. Southland Engineering is the engineer on the project. Carl Lugens is here tonight to speak to this application. A portion of the site work for that residential development has carried over onto this property. It's a logical conclusion, a logical step for a de-annexation to occur in order to accommodate that residential development. As Planning Commission was reviewing this, we tried to carry forward the zoning conditions that were originally assigned to this from 2004. The one issue that came forward that we'd like to extend, as well as the gas department, was to continue a gas easement to allow the natural gas mains to be connected at some point in time between State Route 20 and Center Road. The original easement called for some location near 75. The recommendations put forth by Mr. Lugens and the Planning Commission was to allow the developer to approve the location and to limit the gas easement to 20 feet in width. There's really no other conditions for this property. It seems to be a pretty straightforward and logical step to eliminate a piece of property currently in the city with no real use for that. So the recommendation for Planning Commission is to approve the de-annexation with those two conditions.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Hardigree at this time? If there are none, I'll open up a public hearing for AZ 22-02, and anybody wishing to step forward and make comment may do so at this time. And when doing so, please your name and address for our clerk.
Good evening. My name is Carl Lugents, 114 Old Mill Road. Pleased to be here in front of you tonight. And thank you for your time on this request. As Mr. Hardigree said, he pretty much summed it up. This is a small sliver of land that's sandwiched between I-75 and a parcel in the county. The development that's occurring is occurring in the county, and in order to get a driveway up this slope, we need to combine the two parcels so we wouldn't have split jurisdictions. This makes sense for us, and I know tonight is not the voting night, but whenever it comes, I'm here to answer any questions and look forward to a positive vote for that.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lugents? Thank you, sir. Again, we'll continue with the public hearing for AZ 22-02, and again, anybody wishing to step forward and make comment either for or against may do so at this time. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing for AZ 22-02. Council will take this up for consideration at our next meeting. I'll now open up Z 22-01. And Mr. Hardigree, if you'll please start us off with that.
Yes. This one's a little more involved in the same part of town. Z22-01 is a rezoning application for 103 acres, currently north of Center Road and adjacent to 75. The rezoning request is to rezone from the current R20 zoning to RA12 for the construction of 199 townhomes. The developer is represented by Prime Engineering, Mr. Rob McPherson, who's here tonight to address any questions the council may have. With this development, we do have a concept plan that is visible on the screen for those 199 units. It would come off Center Road with one entrance. This property actually dates back to 2004. There were zoning conditions applied to this property along with the Autumn Canyon property, along with the Everton Estates property. All combined in 2004, there were conditions put against all the properties. There was also a limit to about 360 residential units or lots for those three parcels when combined. So over time, they've developed individually. Autumn Canyon, about 79 lots developed. Everton Estates is about 182 townhome units. Now this is being proposed at 199 units, which all total is about 100 units over what was initially approved in 2004. There are also conditions associated with each of those properties that have changed a little bit over time. The few conditions that were left, staff recommended carrying those over. I've listed those 6 conditions in the packet for consideration. And I'll touch on just a few of those. One condition that's important is there's a square parcel just to the west of this, and it came up in the rezoning for the Everton Estates, and that's on the Tilley property where there's a cell tower. It was recognized in 2018 that there was a county road connecting Center Road to State Route 20. It cut through that the Tilley property. It was also Commissioner Taylor recommended or said that was a county road that should maintain access for the Tilleys to access Center Road. The Everton Estates property accommodated that request. There is a portion of that road that would need to be accommodated on this project to make that final connection to Center Road. That is one of the conditions that we have recommended carrying forward. There's also a condition that no development occur above the 1,100-foot elevation mark, and that is due to water service limitations. We discussed that somewhat in work session, but nothing can occur above the 1,100 now or in the immediate future. If something changes, then this zoning potentially, or any other development would have to come back before council to address, at least go through site plan review. There was also a proposed gas easement along 75 running north to south in order to complete a future connection of the natural gas main between Center Road and State Route 20. Some of that was addressed in the previous case we just heard with the de-annexation. That easement is recommended to remain in place on this project also. This did get reviewed by all the departments, so all the departments for the most part took no exception to this. Their comments would have been addressed, could be addressed during plan review. Public Works did oppose this rezoning based on the proposed townhomes being front-loaded. Our ordinance requires a rear access, rear driveway component to the townhomes in the city limits. So a variance would be needed to remedy that and allow the front entry townhomes. So that is something to address. There's actually a couple of pages in the application that highlights those deficiencies and what those potential variances are. There are several other variances that were identified on that same spreadsheet that I've been told since work session can be addressed, and I think that the applicant will be here tonight to address that as well. The density is also something that comes up with these type of rezonings. The density for this, because it's limited due to water service, will be below the 1,100 foot mark. There's only about 38 of the 40 acres of the 100 acres that could be developed. That's going to keep density down to about 2 units per acre, which is in keeping with the single-family development to the south and to the west with Ponders Mountain and Autumn Canyon as well. It's also in line with Everton Estates townhome development to the west for the same reasons. Topography limits how many units they can really put on site. So staff did not have any opposition to the rezoning. If it was approved, we did recommend 6 conditions to carry forward with this. And having said all that, as we presented it to Planning Commission, discussions were held at public hearing at the Planning Commission last month, or last week. The Commission did recommend denial of the application. Rob McPherson, Prime Engineering, is here tonight to speak to the application.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hardegree at this point on Z2201?
David, I apologize. I should have asked you earlier. Is there proposed access between this development and the one next to it?
There is no access between developments.
Okay.
Access will be directly from Center Road with one access point.
Okay.
So fire gave no comment about the...
If it's under 199, one entrance is all fire required.
That's correct.
By ordinance.
right to the line.
Yes.
Yeah, the fire
I'm just telling
comment was they take no exceptions from R20 to R12, provided all city adopted codes and ordinances are followed.
Yeah, I read that.
Okay, sorry.
Comment about vetting of it further. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll open up a public hearing for Z2201 and ask anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against to do so at this time. And again, when you do, if you would please give your name and, come on forward, your name and your address, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Rob McPherson, 862 Devonwood Trail, Marietta, Georgia. I'm here representing the applicant, Merrill Trust Properties. Have a little presentation over here I'd like to present you, to give you just a few more facts. Many of you have already heard, but just wanted to point out a couple things. First of all, we have no issues with the conditions that David has proposed. There is the front-loaded versus rear-loaded. We know that that's one potential variance. We do not anticipate any other variances associated with the development. Go back to the first slide there. Okay, we know where the site is. I'm sorry. Next slide. Just a couple things. This is a 103-acre site immediately adjacent to I-75, and frontage is on Center Road. Next slide. And this is the adjacent zoning. You see it's currently zoned R20. We're asking for the RA12, which is exactly what is the zoning beside us to our west. To the northwest is Bartow County. That is actually M1, or mining zoned. So it's a very heavy industrial property there. Immediately to the north is one David just presented a minute ago of a new development that is there. It consists of townhomes, like duplexes. I think it looks like an apartment, but I'm not sure if it's an apartment, maybe a senior living type complex. So a similar type of zoning and certainly similar type density. And then to the south is R10, which is a single family subdivision. Our proposed development would have a road that would connect to Center Road. It would be directly aligned with that road to maximize safety and have a good alignment from a access standpoint. Next slide. The existing site is currently 103 acres. You can see the blue line. That represents the elevation of 1100, which is the maximum elevation that the water system can provide. We understand that restriction and do not have any issues with that from a design standpoint. We've actually done some preliminary grading on the site. The maximum elevation that the city wants to see for like a faucet or a head on a shower is 1050. We have set maximum grade on any of these units at 1030, which will put us well below that, so we won't have any water pressure issues. We will also look at the water pressure. If we need to do some modeling, we'll check that out to make sure that we are compliant there. The 50-foot easement along I-75, which is sort of the red thick line, we have no issue with that. We've designed to accommodate that, and we'll provide that as part of any development package we submit. The access road to the cell tower, you can sort of see it comes off of Center Road. It is an extremely steep road now. Trees are down across it. It's not really an accessible road. We have spoken to the representative of that property and have assured him that we will provide a new road. It will be paved. We do work with cell towers, so we know what kind of trucks they need to be able to access those cell towers, and the road that we would actually be providing would actually be better than what they currently have. And we will make sure that that easement or that right-of-way is provided so that they have that access and they seem amenable to that. It is a very steep property. It is a very difficult piece of property to develop. We have approximately 440 foot of drop across the property. Between that steep property and the 103 acres, it reduces this property down to a very much smaller usable piece of land. Next slide. You can see that what we would propose, it's about 35 acres that will be disturbed. So, approximately a third of this entire parcel will be disturbed, of which really 28 acres of it is associated with the housing development and the amenities package. Based on that, that's at a 7.1 units per acre, just based on the disturbed area. If you compare it to the whole site, it's around 2 units per acre. So that density, even though it's sort of compact in the area we're working with, the overall site is pretty good, pretty low density, well under the code. Next slide. I wanted to address a couple things. One is, yes, single family townhomes. The minimum lot size is 2,000 square feet. That meets the codes. The minimum heated area within these units will be 1,000 square feet. We will meet that with no problem with the proposed units that we would be putting in. We anticipate around 34 buildings. That may go up or down a little bit, but the 199 units would be the max. You can see that access is at Center Road, directly aligned with the subdivision. Across the way, we have good sight distances. We have good visibility. The road is based on Public Works and based on my visits. We do not think that there will be any traffic impact to Center Road. And then the number of units or number of bedrooms in each unit, I think it's probably going to be in the 60-40 split, with 60 being 2 bedrooms, 40% being 3 bedrooms. I think earlier David said maybe a 50-50, but based on latest discussions with with the property owner is probably going to be more in that 60-40. It will have an amenities package. We haven't decided on what that amenities package looks like. What we've discussed is clubhouse, maybe a multi-purpose use court, or a swimming pool, tennis courts. We're not sure what will be there. We've also been recently looking at trying to figure out how to connect these two roads. We think we've figured out how to do that and have a road that is accessible so that a person doesn't have to drive all the way through it to get around to the end street. That area that you see off to the left at the top of the site would be the access road that we would carry across to get back to the existing road that goes up to the cell tower. So you can see that 2/3 of that's going to be nice paved road, with most of it being around 8% slope, which is a very navigable slope for any kind of vehicle. Next slide. This is sort of what we envision, and I know that front-loaded versus rear-loaded, we're working to see if we can do the rear loading from a grading standpoint, but from the topography of the site, it makes it very difficult to do that without putting in a lot of walls, a lot more paving. But what we would do is we would try to set these units back so that they're at least 20 feet off of the sidewalk to that garage entry. And what that allows, and what it actually does to the whole design, is it takes the parking in the street that causes so much problems for fire department and emergency services. You've got 2-car garage, you've got 2 cars in the garage, plus you have 2 spaces outside. That's 4 parking spaces per unit, which is a significant number of parking spaces in a townhome development. We do this design on almost every townhome I've ever done. The different developers we've worked with, they all want that 20-foot because they understand the importance of keeping the sidewalk clear so people can walk up and down it, and also getting people out of the street so that they're not parking in the street. We realize that is a variance. We don't want that to be an issue as part of the rezoning, but being transparent, this is sort of what we visualize and this is what we would see. And I think that gets all my comments. I think all the other items in there we're good with. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. McPherson?
What do you think rent's going to be on your unit?
Rent? I don't.
Cost of rent, lease, or you can just do price?
I have no idea. One of the big challenges we have right now is the cost of construction is just going up crazy. We were doing some pricing today. From 2 years ago, those construction costs have gone up 50% in 2 years. So that's a real challenge for the developers, particularly with one that is this difficult to grade.
The owner of the planning commission said they would be for sale.
So not rental, for sale.
They weren't being developed as a rental.
I don't really have a question, more of a comment for you. Normally, the school system is one of the divisions of the city that comments on rezonings. They've deferred their comments because they have not yet received from y'all a breakdown of the number of bedrooms per unit for your overall development. I would just recommend that you get with Mr. Hardegree or Mr. Menino and get that information to them so they can provide that to the school system, so the school system can forward their comments to the council.
Yes, sir. I'd be glad to do. I thought that had already been done. I was out of town last week when the hearing was.
I was as well.
I think it was. Yeah, I think initially they said 50-50, and I think that's changed to 60-40.
But just get something in writing to David or Randy that they can give to the school system. That would be appreciated.
Glad to.
Anything else?
Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time. More than welcome to answer other questions you may have.
Thank you. Continue the public hearing for Z2201. Anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against may do so at this time.
Hi, Council. My name is Robert Walker. I'm an attorney at Jenkins, Bowen & Walker, and I represent Tilly Properties, Inc. Just a very brief comment. We are not opposed to the development. The only thing that we would ask, and I have spoken to the property owner and to Mr. McPherson, and been assured that they do intend to maintain that access. But we would just ask that when the council does make a decision, that it do carry forward that prior zoning condition that was enacted in 2018, I believe, requiring that access be maintained. There is you can see if could you go to the aerial of the property? You can actually see the cell towers right here. It's this little dot. And you can see the road that comes down, and this is actually the roadbed of the existing road that goes down, shown on Mr. Pearson's drawing. It currently would go down and came through right here and came out of Center Road. We worked with the Everton Estates people to move that over slightly so as to not disrupt their development. And of course, we're happy to work with this developer as well to maintain that in a way that makes sense and doesn't interfere with that development. But we would ask that the council, when they do make their decision, that they carry that condition forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, continuing on with Z 2201. Anybody wishing to make comment may do so at this time.
Hi, good evening. I'm Donna Slavin. I live in the Ponders Mountain subdivision, which is just down Center Road from this proposed development. I'm at 10 Everest Drive Southeast. Thank you. And I haven't heard much conversation around traffic on Center Road, not specifically related to this development, but there's 2 other developments of townhomes on Center Road. So when we put the 3 of those together, along with the development that's on Smiley Ingram, which is Center Road is kind of a cut through to get to Smiley Ingram, to get to 20, to get to 75. So the combination of the townhouse that's development on Smiley Ingram Road, along with now 3 developments of townhouse communities, I think will have some significant impact on the traffic on Center Road. It's a 2-lane road, and we'd like to be able to continue to have access in and out of our property. So I think that's something that I'd like to see considered. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Sherry Reese, and I live at 22 Canyon Trail in Autumn Canyon subdivision. And I too have concern about the traffic. If y'all are familiar with Center Road, it's a 2-lane, windy country road. And as she mentioned, we're getting, actually it's a total of about 700 townhomes between the one on Smiley Ingram and the 3 on Center Road. So that's definitely going to have an impact. I'm concerned because these developments are right in the curvy part of Center Road, and we'll have school buses stopping at each of these. That seems to be very dangerous because people speed on that road going around those curves, and all of a sudden you come upon a school bus. Also, when there's accidents on 75 that reroute the traffic off of 75, they come down Center Road. The last accident they had a couple weeks ago where the truck was on fire, it was backed up from 41 all the way to Ponders Mountain, which is past the 75 overpass. That's a lot of traffic. And one of the issues is there's a flashing turning arrow on 41 coming off the center. That's a real problem anyway right now, and several of us have written to GDOT and asked them to take a look at that. So that's in the works. But the traffic, I mean, you can just imagine how much traffic's going to be added. To say that it's not going to have any impact, I don't believe that. So I just wanted to express my concern. It's my neighbor's concern also, all of us concerned that live on that road. So if you would consider that, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make comment on Z 2201 may step forward and do so at this time. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing for Z 2201. And again, council will have another public hearing at our next meeting and then take that up for consideration. What is the date?
June 2nd.
June 2nd. Thank you very much.
Mayor, if I can interrupt for just a moment, anyone that has spoken or any guest that is here, if you will, please make sure that you sign in on the sign-in sheet right outside the council chamber so I can make sure that I properly record your name and addresses, please. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Julia. Moving on, Tom, the floor is yours.
Honorable Mayor and Council, Christopher McKellar with Malling and Jenkins is here tonight. We'll give a brief presentation of the city's fiscal year 2021 audit. Christopher.
And as you're making your way up, I'll just, for people that are here at the meeting, or maybe, we had a meeting prior to this where you went through the full version of the audit. We appreciate the thorough work that you've done with that. And so now you'll give us a synopsis of that finding so that folks can do that. So thank you.
Correct. So as Tom mentioned, my name is Christopher McKellar. I'm a director with Malden & Jenkins, and I was the main point of contact for the city's audit. I'm here to present the audit results for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. And you should have before you the auditor's discussion and analysis, which I'll hit a couple of points in it for the audit results, and then a few required communications. So if we flip over to page 4, this is the audit results. So as you can see there, the financial statements are the responsibility of management, and our responsibility as external auditors is to issue an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. What I'm sure you would like to know is, how did the city do? Malden & Jenkins did issue an unmodified or clean opinion, which means the financial statements do present fairly in all material respects. On page 5, one thing that I wanted to point out is the city does prepare an annual comprehensive financial report, which goes above and beyond the required financial reporting. This includes the introductory section and statistical section. So the city should be commended for their efforts in putting that document together. There's a lot of good information in there. Tom and the rest of the team, they do a great job pulling all this together for the city. Then if we flip over to page 14, I'll hit a couple of required communications. We encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management and the performance of the audit. As I mentioned, Tom and the rest of the finance department, they do a great job of having everything prepared for us when we show up to do the audit. Any questions we have, they're an open book and bring that to us. We had no disagreements with management on accounting principles, and we are independent of the city as required by AICPA standards, and is what you would want from your external auditor. We had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies for fiscal year 2021. So all the findings that we had in prior years were resolved. So the city should be commended for that as well. And that is all I have for you this evening, unless there are any specific questions.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any specific questions, but for the public standpoint, I know you guys, Tom has put together this bound booklet. It is on our website if anybody wants to see that. But I do, again, I know you mentioned it, but Tom and his staff have done a great job working with you to prepare this report. It is very difficult and very time consuming, so I do appreciate Tom and your team putting forth that effort. Obviously, no significant findings is important to us from the standpoint, because that shows that we are doing everything in the most efficient and effective manner, and to the public standpoint that we are transparent as possible.
Certainly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Tom, and to your staff, and congratulations. I know that's good. It's always good to have auditors in, but it's, as you said in the work session, it's always good to have them go too. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Morgan, you're up, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to have the memorandum of understanding from the Georgia Exceptional Main Streets Program to have council approve it and allow the mayor to sign that going forward for us. It's requested by the DDA board and the DDA director.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion's in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Mr. Gillum, you've got the next three, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The first one here is a project in Dillinger Park for the gazebo with Red Top Industrial. They'll be renovating the gazebo based upon the removal of the wood handrails and the wood flooring from the ending of the bridge all the way into the gazebo itself. With that, they'll be installing 6x6 posts, a lag bolt system, new deck boards, a top plate for the handrail system and pickets, and bottom plate for the handrail system. And it will also include an exterior gate at the back end of the gazebo for lake access. And the structure will be screwed with deck mate screws. And the total amount of this project will be $35,500 with a completion date of no later than June the 30th. And we recommend this project to Mayor and Council for your approval.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Now that that's passed, it'll essentially have the same look.
It'll look
some design modification.
the benches that
I'm
you
talking
see.
about the top, the roof line. I mean, I know everything's, you already mentioned the railing.
The roof line, no, it'll just be the bridge itself and inside the gazebo.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next one was with Cartersville Fence Company. This is a project at Deerfield Park to replace the current fencing that's out there. It'll still be the white vinyl 3-panel fence there, but we will also extend the existing parking lot. Like I said, it will be with Cartersville Fence Company. So what the material will include will be the 3-rail vinyl fence with 48 bags of cement and labor to install the fencing. So the amount of fencing and installation will be $7,788. New gravel for the parking lot will be estimated at $7,500 for a total amount of $15,288 with a guaranteed completion date of no later than June the 30th. And we recommend to Mayor and Council for approval of this project.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
From this picture here, I know that we spoke, and that this might be of interest. Could you maybe show us where we're expanding the parking, and then I think you were talking about a dedicated in and out?
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm walking over here real quick, it will be, the parking lot will now come out to here, so the fencing will come out here and will come over this side. So all that will be extra parking that we can have there. The only in and out right now is right here, so we'll make another one here, and we'll have signage here, so you'll have an entrance only here and an exit only here. So you'll have the flow coming through here and then coming out of here. And we want to do that especially with extending the parking lot, because based upon with
the popularity of the disc golf course that we have out there and with the tournaments and with the number of people that's out there on weekdays, weeknights, and weekends, as well as that's where our lacrosse program is getting ready to take off as well. So we want to make sure we have ample parking for everybody out there.
Are you putting in any islands to help designate or delineate?
No, it's just going to be an open gravel parking lot.
We are trying to do something just to extend to the parking lot in an efficient manner. I mean, it costs a little more to do all this.
Hopefully they'll figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? If not, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Last item for you, Tom.
Yeah, this is a geobond project that'll take place in Dillinger Park at the back entrance and exit. As you go out onto the to the road to Indian Mounds Trail. The project will include the removal of the bushes and the brush that you see here on the screen, and that will be replaced with a fence that will be very similar to the fence at the main entrance exit of Dillinger Park. It will not have the stone rock post, but it will have big, nice fence post in the middle, but it'll look very similar to the main entrance and exit. Steel materials, their proposed amount is $8,155, and the lumber for the project is estimated at $7,500 for a total of $15,655. And our parks maintenance staff will be the one that will do the removal of the brush and the bushes, as well as the installation of the fence, with a completion date of no later than June the 30th. And any additional money we have left with the GEO bond, from this GEO bond project, that will go to the water filling stations that we'll be able to place in Dillinger Park, specifically at the tennis center and at the concession stand football press box.
Thank you. Questions for Tom on this item? If there are none, a motion's in order.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. Speaking of water, Mr. Forsyth.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, this is a request to replace some screens or brushes, 4 fine screens operated in the water pollution control plant. These are wear items. They last about 3 to 5 years on those screens. We're requesting your approval to purchase these from the sole source provider Zima Corporation for $8,615.
Okay. Questions, comments, or motions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Porta.
Yes, Mayor, they're painting and drywall repair. The fire department's going to be moving here in the next couple months to 500 South Tennessee Street, which is part of our garage facility. It's been used, some internal space has been used by the police department and the sheriff's department. They're going to be moving out, and I recommend approval to do some work, painting, drywall repair of $11,500.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? If none, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Sanders, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is a change order for engineering services on the Douthit Ferry Road widening project. It's a pretty substantial change order that covers a wide range of tasks. The total amount is $524,435.90. And our consultant is here, and I'm going to turn it over to him, let him briefly go over what the change order consists of, and then we can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Carl Lugens, 114 Old Mill Road. And I appreciate the time to discuss this project. I know it's been going on for quite some time. There's been a lot of twists, a lot of turns in what's been required over the 12 years since we started this project. DOT has changed a lot of their policies over time, and personnel has changed, and so methods of design have changed. Things we have to do. Anytime you borrow money for construction, which is a project framework agreement where the construction cost for this is paid for between the state and federal government. And anytime you borrow money, well, not really borrow, but receive money from the federal government, there's a lot of strings that are attached to this, and those strings often require a lot of studies to be done, redone. They have timing effects to the studies, and then you have to restudy the studies, and sometimes you feel like you're just doing the same thing over and over. So this change order here is pretty significant. The reason being is pretty significant. In 2016, we did our traffic counts out on the road. Every 5 years, we're supposed to. They require you to update the traffic counts until you get your environmental document approved. For the last 12 years, we've been working really diligently to try to get an environmental document approved. Everybody knows this is a very historical, sensitive area. There's a lot of archaeology out there, but there's a lot more to the environmental document than the archaeology. There's noise, there's air, there's history, archaeology, ecology, and the list goes on. And this is what the federal government and the state require in order to receive funds of this, because projects like this can have impacts on noise and air quality. Certainly can have impacts through their eyes on history and archaeology. So they're very sensitive as to what we are impacting and studying this at the nth level to make sure that we've chosen the best route possible. So, as I mentioned, every 5 years, the traffic study, the traffic counts have to be redone until you get an environmental document. Well, we were at the point of submitting our environmental document. We submitted a draft environmental document to be reviewed, and our initial comment was, hey, we want you to study one intersection further beyond your, this was back in 2020, beyond the limits that you are now. We said, okay, you know, but how does that really affect, you know, because we were terminating at 2 highway points, and we tried to argue through that. They said, well, no, that we have to study that to make sure we're not going to overburden these different intersections. So at that point, we started restudying it. We asked the question, can we use our existing traffic counts? And the point, they said, yes, you can use your existing traffic counts. So we moved forward, did that study. I believe that was also a change order. That traffic was then approved. All that got put into the environmental document, sent to Federal Highway, and I want to say it was within a few months. And they said, well, your traffic counts that generated the traffic study are now outdated. So the current traffic engineer that we have is a sub-consultant to Southland Engineering, Kimley Horn. Very reputable company, does projects all over the country. They said, hey, you know, we have to, because of a lot of changes in policy, they have new ICE analysis, which is intersection studies now that are different from what we had. We have to go back through and study everything else. In addition to the former traffic engineer that we had on this, which when we adopted the project, we kept a lot of the sub-consultants from that, is no longer practicing. So we had to swap over through midstream. I mean, this has been 12 years. I may be retired before the end of this. We came back and said, look, you know, it is fairly expensive, but we're basically starting over at scratch with what we have to do now. Had we had that information, we would close the chapter on what we call preliminary plans, and what that means is we can go into purchasing right away and final plans. And right away and final plans is a lot less restrictive than what we've been going through with this environmental document. So we've come a long way. We got right there, and we fumbled on the 1 yard line. Well, not really a fumble, but we got tackled. And so we have to have this change order to move forward to update the traffic study. That is the major component. Once we update the traffic study, we have to then update the environmental again, because we're going to have different traffic numbers that are projections, because the original build date got pushed 2 years because of all this. So everything kind of gets updated now. So once we get that, that's the last thing that we have to do to turn in the environmental document again. That gets turned in, and then hopefully the approval process comes through Federal Highway to move forward. So the 2 main change orders in this were from the traffic study and the environmental document being updated. There are other sub-consultants. Our bridge sub-consultant doesn't finish his plans until what we call final plans, which happens after this phase of this environmental document becoming approved. Well, they gave us that price back in 2010 and called me and said, Carl, there's no way I can do my work for what our fees are almost 3 times what they were then. So that was understandable. So I said, okay. And so I called all the sub-consultants and said, look, we're going to put a package together and go to the city and ask for a change order. So I don't want to do one now and then do one next week. So I need everybody's information. The geotechnical company that we had out there, they did a bridge foundation investigation and actually had to go deeper with their investigation than they originally thought that they would have to go. So that's a very small change order. It was about $6,000 of all this. So when you add all that up, there actually were then our change order that Southland's actually doing. We're managing all this, but we're also having to do a few updates to our plans. So that's also included in this. You add all that up, and that's what comes up to the total of $524,435.90.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Lugins?
I just need to make sure I understand exactly where we are at this point with the change order. So we're holding on a new traffic plan study, and you're holding on an updated environmental. And once you get those two done, you submit, and then we're ready to move forward. All this other stuff's done.
All that, everything else is done. Now, the timing of that, it's going to take 14 months to do this traffic study. To get, and what I mean by that, because there's certain times that we can't just go take the counts this summer. We have to wait till the fall to take the counts. And then they have to do the study, and then they have to send it in to GDOT and get reviews and all that stuff. But they have not missed a date with us since we hired them back in 2020. Okay. So based on that, I believe that, yes, to answer your question, the question is yes, that's it to move to what we call final plans and right-of-way. We start purchasing right-of-way. Okay. The environmental document will be behind us, finally.
And this dollar amount is for all those,
all those
services. Catch and sink has been thrown in with this. The time frame that you talk about, I understand these things take time. GDOT is on board and knows that timeline, and I mean, they're not going to send us letters saying, hey, you missed this, that, or the other. Is that it?
Correct. They are on board with it. Actually, we sit down and write the schedule with them. So we have monthly meetings with GDOT. Every month we get on there, and it's pretty much several of their departments that are involved. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? At this point, there's nothing that we have as far as to submit to them to where we're behind. They've got some review things that they owe to us. There's still things that are happening, but the major lift is this environmental and traffic study.
Carl, just a couple questions. Are all these our existing consultants with any of these new ones?
Yeah, yes. Well, so Kimley Horn is a new consultant that so we separated ties with our traffic engineer that we had on the project from day one, right, back in prior to 2020. And so yes, Kimley Horn is a new one. All the other ones are the same. The environmental consultant is the same, and they're very reputable too. Yeah. They do a lot of projects. Edwards Pittman. You know, and we even thought about going out and looking for other consultants, but at this point, no, you can't do that. No, I mean, you'd have to reteach them 12 years of education, and we can't do that.
And so if I understand the timeline, 14 months for the traffic study, then probably 3 months to update the environmental after that?
Yep, it's probably 3 to 6 months to update.
3 to 6
yeah,
months.
So we're looking about 20 months to get it back into federal highways.
Where does the bridge plans, you sort of mentioned that, where does that come in, and how does that affect that?
The bridge plans are part of the final plan, so that doesn't affect it.
So that's not part of all of the preliminary?
It actually goes in the environmental documents, but those don't really change. There was a minor change to the center line based on something, but that was an engineering thing that came up. It's been resolved. It's been dealt with. It wasn't really part of the critical path. Their deal is they don't do anything else until final plans. So this is just a change order for them to when they pick it back up.
And just so council understands, this 20-month process to get all this done for our new five-year clock, that starts at the end of the 20-month process, that these things are good for 5 years, or does it start today?
No, so there's two. No, it doesn't start today. So it starts at the approval of those items. So we will do the traffic counts probably in the fall. Traffic counts get sent to GDOT. They will then approve that probably somewhere around the first of the year, I would guess. First of 2023. So those counts will be good through 2028. are, so when I say they pushed the project, you know, they pushed the project 2 years out to construction, but that would put us in construction around 25.
Okay.
So we hope to beat all, I mean, we should be well beyond that. Then the second thing that has a timing effect is the environmental document. The environmental document doesn't get approved till even later from that. Now, once they get approved, they're approved by, once they get approved by Federal Highway, it's done. There's no more time clock on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've got a couple. Now, how much money do we still have left that were grants that were given to us?
Sure, on page 141 of the agenda shows how much is available. Right now, out of that PFA, the grant awarded, there's $108,562 to change, but there's a remaining $58,853 to be billed. Basically, it's $49,708 of that $609,000 grant. So
that's left.
That's left. So if you take $49,708 off the 524 change order request, it's $474,727.05 have to be paid for from.
So basically, it's getting into our pocket.
Yes.
Okay. Tommy, could I ask you, is there any way we could get with the DOT and maybe review the scope of this project to see if there's something that can be done to make it where we can, it's not so drug out? I don't know.
I mean, at this point, at this point, you either really need to finish the path we're on, or you would basically have to start over.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that's my my sort of view of it. Is that, would you say that's correct?
Yeah, if we tried to change an alignment or change the scope of this, they'd probably just kill it.
Well, we're changing the scope. Every one of you says change the scope.
Well, yeah.
What we're talking about is change the scope of the
physical project.
Yeah, you know, because the scope is something that's was approved at the concept report back at the beginning of the project. And so once you get that concept report approved, you know, that's the path you got to go down. And that's at the very beginning. So if we wanted to change, you know, the project significantly, you know, if we, you know, for example, we're proposing a 4-lane with a raised median. If we want to go to a 10-lane or, you know, a 3-lane, which either way you go, you would have to go back to that and redo the concept report, and basically everything would start over.
And instead of updating all of these reports that are consultants that are here, they would be brand new reports based upon the new concept. So all this work would be thrown away, and they would start fresh for their entire review process. That's how it works.
So when GDOT comes out and does a public comment portion,
yes,
and they take in public comments, are they taking, is that kind of like water over the dam? Because now they have these public comments, and if you look at the public comments, there's a lot of negative feelings towards the project. Okay, so, and I know this doesn't necessarily do with your change order, but it does. But I mean, when you start looking at the negative comments, where the public saying, "Hey, we don't want this project to take place," at what point have we already passed the no, we can't do this, or no, we're not going to do this because of the public comment?
No.
The public negative comments haven't started until just recently.
Well,
I don't know what spurred it, but it has.
Because GDOT sent out a card,
yeah,
and opened up.
That's part of
Yeah, but your
But
assessment of negative comments needs to be in context.
Well,
Because
yeah.
we've been doing this 12 years and we've not had any outcry hardly whatsoever.
And what you have to understand is,
yeah, that's understandable.
GDOT is required to do on all federal funded projects and state projects, they're required to do a public comment process. They take those comments, they evaluate those comments, And they have all over the state, I'm sure Carl and Tommy can give you numerous examples, where they've revised projects based on those comments. They don't revise it based upon negative comments, understand. GDOT are professionals, they're engineers, they're environmental people. They look at the project based upon those professional needs, the professional studies, and they review the comments received based upon that. And if there's something in there that they weren't aware of, or something that may change the way they looked at something, they revise it. I comment that I don't want it. I think we don't, there's not a need for the traffic and those things. Aren't things really that GDOT would address in their review and in their process back to us. Now, those comments are also, of course, been given to the mayor and council. And when all of these fun studies are done, hopefully this is the last batch, GDOT's going to come to the city council and say, are y'all ready to go on this project? And then not GDOT, but y'all will take all those comments into consideration. And then y'all will say, yes, let's begin right-of-way acquisition. Or y'all may say, we've decided not to do the project. You don't get any of this money back if you make that decision, but yeah, that's how it works.
So like the change of scope would be like going and just saying, okay, we're on a 4-lane, we want to change it to.
You want to add in a divided highway when there's not. You want to widen the intersections. You want to make them roundabouts instead of T intersections, or T intersections instead of roundabouts. You know, where you physically are changing the layout of the road. I mean, that's what the scope is. The scope is the physical layout of the road.
Okay. So what was the determination on going another? I think you had to go to. Did you have to go to Mission Road as a terminus?
Yeah,
what was
actually Mission Road, the intersection at Mission Road, that intersection is functioning okay. The stretch between 113 and Mission, the 2-lane stretch between there is, it's almost at without, I mean, just moving, it's almost at capacity now. So we have to show them, hey, the intersection still works. People can get to the intersection and turn, but a lot more people are traveling on, which is Burnt Hickory Road at that point, over the bridge. There is a lot of traffic on there, and it's burdening that 2-lane section. And there's only going to be more. I mean, you guys know, you see the developments that are coming.
Yeah, I know we had talked about. I know Tommy kind of expressed that when we were talking about the center road and about the capacity that road can take, and that it still has a lot of capacity. And from the earlier traffic studies, do you see that on Dr. Ferry? Do you see I mean, we've already done the traffic study.
And I'll give you a little bit of history. So this all started even before me. This was even before Tommy. This started with another engineer, another director of Public Works, and they said, hey, Carter Grove is about to build up there. The city's growing. We're getting all these trucks going downtown. You know, they're going to put 3,000 homes in Carter Grove eventually. And this, you know, this was 2004 and 5.
This project actually goes back to when Sam Smith was mayor.
Yeah, and so it goes back a long time, and they said, well, what are we going to do? Because the only way you can get from over there is you're not going to go all the way out to the airport and cut down, or you go out 75 and cut back into Cartersville. So people started looking at where the growth was going to come, and in fact it's coming. It's just been 15 years since they thought it was going to happen. But you know, now the new school is going in there. There are other phases of Carter Grove being built. I know of 2 or 3 developments now that are looking on Doubt Ferry Road. I know some that are on Walnut Grove Road. You know, on the Walnut Plantation back there. There's folks looking to develop. So the area is starting to get congested. In 2009, the Dellinger family approved a PUD on their plan that just that one project would have overburdened the road more than it could handle at that time with the traffic at that time. So although that it's taken a while. The timing of starting those plans and those thoughts was probably right, because it does take a long time to use federal dollars. It was a forethought, and this is again my opinion and what we found in our. Tommy's talking about the concept plan and how this was approved in the concept plan. It didn't just get thought up and go, hey, we want a 4-lane road. No, it looks at, okay, 40 years out from when the road might open, and says the road should still carry capacity for 40 years from now. Well, that's not quite, it's 20 years actually, but for a long time after the road's built. So the catalyst that was really sparked this is going now. It's starting now, and we're starting to see what was predicted 20 years ago happen. We're seeing it now. There may be another downturn between now and the time that the road gets built, but it's only going to slow down for a matter of time. At some point, it's inevitable that there's going to be a lot more cars out there and a lot more people out there, and so thus the need and purpose statement was justified.
So I understand the concern amongst council about the money that's been spent. I guess when you take a look at, again, on this front end, at the end of the day, there's going to be a road that's built that's going to be funded by federal and state dollars. Generally speaking, what's the cost of?
We're close to $20 million right now.
On just the construction of the road. That's what the Fed and the state would have to put in for the road construction. Okay.
And it keeps going up every day.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Council, turn it over to you.
Make a motion to approve change order.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Reinhardt, you are up with banking services.
Honorable Mayor and Council, on March the 18th of this year, the City Finance Department issued an RFP for banking services. The RFPs were due back by April the 18th. We had 3 banks that basically responded: Ameris Bank, Synovus Bank, and Truist Bank. After a lengthy analysis of the 3 RFPs by myself and finance staff, we have determined that Ameris Bank is the best fit for the city based on the needs that were stated in the RFP. Basically what it boils down to is all 3 banks have essentially the same processing, the same types of they're all the same types of organizations, but it basically boiled down to the pricing structure. Ameris Bank has a little bit better pricing structure than Synovus and our current bank, Truist Bank. So with that, I am recommending the banking services be awarded to Ameris Bank. This is pending a contract being approved by myself, city manager, and our attorney.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Reinhardt on this item? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Finance report, Mr. Reinhardt.
Yes, sir. Mr. Honorable Mayor and Council, we'll be looking at the March 2022 and comparing it to March 2021. In the general fund, revenues increased over last year by $1.4 million. The expenditures increased by $2.3 million. 2 items of interest or revenues that I look at on a monthly basis: local option sales tax have an increase there year-to-date of about $854,000, and building permits and inspection fees have an overall increase there of about $396,000. In the water and sewer fund, revenues increased over last year by $2.5 million. Expenses decreased by $9.1 million. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, decreased debt service expenses, decreased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. In the gas fund, revenues increased over last year by $9.2 million. Expenses increased by $7.7 million. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, increased cost of purchased gas, decreased debt service expenses, and decreased capital expenses. In the electric fund, revenues increased over last year by $1.7 million. Expenses increased by $2.9 million. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, increased cost of purchase of electricity, increased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. Stormwater fund, revenues increased over last year by $7,000. Expenses decreased by $278,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, decreased operating expenses, and decreased capital expenses. Solid waste fund, revenues increased over last year by $365,000. Excuse me. And the expenses increased by $238,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, and increased capital expenses. Finally, in the fiber optics fund, revenues increased over last March by $105,000. Expenses increased by $182,000. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, and decreased capital expenses. In our cash position for the month of March, total unrestricted cash increased. Total restricted cash also increased. SPOS revenue accounts balances, SPOS 2003 is $31,892.48. SPOS 2014 balance, $231,991.10. SPOS 2020 account is $5,124,567.24.
Thank you. Anything to add?
Again, Mayor, the general fund's doing very well for this fiscal year. Appreciate Tom and his staff for continuing to watch over the finances and all the department heads working to help with that.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Penny, you had a couple of items you wanted to share before we closed out this evening. Please step forward.
Mayor and Council, I just want to let all of our citizens know that beginning on Monday, we're going to start our natural gas safety survey. This is something that happens every 4 years. Our gas department's contractor is going to make a pre-call on Monday. This is just a heads up, you're going to get an actual call on Wednesday. Simple survey, 10 questions, less than 5 minutes, yes and no, do you have gas service? Have you been receiving safety information in your billing? This is going to go to both our customers and the non-customers along our service line when it comes to gas. So if you want any more information, it is on our homepage, sent out on the app today, and then also phone calls via Everbridge. And the next item, I just want to give a huge shout out to our Public Works crews because it is National Public Works Week. They're out in the elements, they do a great job, it's hot, they're out there. When it's snowing, they're out there. They'll even work double duty after the holidays. So we have good stuff. And I want to point out that one of our citizens sent in images of her granddaughter the other day. She was waiting outside with cold bottled water for our crews, coming in and then picking up solid waste. So I thought that was very apropos for this week. Good stuff. So thanks to our Public Works.
Thank you very much. Any other business that needs to come before council this evening?
I'd just like to publicly say congratulations to the class of 2022, as I believe they graduate this week.
That's right.
Soon. So congratulations to all those on their hard work, and may they go forth and conquer.
Thank you for that. Saturday night baseball, Cartersville plays in Rome against Loganville for a state championship. We wish them well in that. Go Canes.
Okay.
It's at Rome. It's at Rome. It's at Advent Hill Stadium where the Rome Braves play. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There you go.